Okay, guys, let me know if you guys can hear me well and see me well. You guys could put something in the chat box. Let me know if you guys can hear me and see me. I see I got a couple of you guys that are online here. If you guys can put something in the box, let me know how my audio sound, how my voice sounds. Let me know what you guys hear on that. Okay, very good. So you guys can hear me well and see me well. So well, welcome to our session. I know, so this session here I'm doing tonight is a CISSP session, and one of the hardest topic in CISSP is encryption. So I've got a lot of people that ask me to do some encryption sessions. So tonight we're going to talk about asymmetric cryptography, hybrid cryptography. I also do about 5 practice questions with you guys in it. Hopefully we can do more of these sessions in it. Now this will be, of course, available for you to replay tomorrow or some other time. Maybe you'll watch some of this, maybe you'll forget it. So let's see how this works out. So welcome to our live YouTube session. You guys feel free to ask me any question you like. You can just put the answer, you can just put your questions in the chat box located somewhere on your screen there, and I'll make sure I get around to it. Now you can ask me any question. This thing, a lot of you guys may be from the course here at TI. I did send out an invite this morning to all the students that have been taking our classes with us. So hopefully you guys are, here to join us. Maybe you're studying for your exam. So once again, let's get started, guys. If you don't know who I am Andrew. I am one of the CISSP instructor here, along with Juan Estrella. If you have our course, you know I did all the videos in it. If you watch those videos, it'll basically make sure you're ready to pass your exam. I also do the live training. So let's go ahead and do this. And again, I want to do some practice questions with you guys. So let's go ahead and get started. So tonight we're talking about asymmetric encryption. And this is a topic you're going to find in the domain of security engineering. If you look in your CISSP study guide, the official study guide, there is chapters 6 and 7. And this one is literally, it's called asymmetric or public key cryptography. This is where they go into talking about digital signatures, certificate-based systems, or the whole TLS-based systems. And tonight I'm going to give you a good introduction to that. In a previous video or in a live session I did a live session where I had covered symmetric encryption. So I'm going to do a quick review of where I covered symmetric encryption, and then I'll go into asymmetric encryption, and eventually we'll talk about hybrid cryptography. So I'm going to go into this right now. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and put them into the chat box, and I will get them answered for you. And also, if you have any questions about any other topics that you would like for me to talk about, go ahead and just put them into the chat box there. All right, so I got a question here from Aaron. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much. Today I passed the CISSP. Okay, so ultra congratulations to you, Aaron. Passed the CISSP. Juan was great last week, and I watched your entire course online. You were absolutely amazing. So Aaron, thank you, Aaron. Congratulations. I'm super happy that Juan course was amazing, and so was my video. I'm super happy that we were able to help you pass. Passing the CISSP is a major milestone in any career. I remember passing CISSP in 2005, really long time ago. I think it was 17 years. So congratulations to that. Use it well. Be proud of yourself. It's a major accomplishment. And for all of you guys that are studying to take your exam, this is going to be a pretty major accomplishment on your actual test too. So Aaron, super congratulations to that in there. All right, so Aaron, hopefully you can stick around. Maybe you'll learn something new in studying asymmetric encryption. All right, so let's get right into it. And I want to talk about, before I get into asymmetric encryption, I want to do a quick recap on symmetric cryptography. I'm not going to go into the whole cryptography thing. If you don't know much about it, watch the previous video I did. I was supposed to do more of these sessions. I just got bogged down with work. If you look at the previous video I did right here on the channel, I did a few videos on, I did one live session on symmetric encryption, and I talk about the basics of cryptography in that session. So today we're going to continue that, but I just want to start off with symmetric. So I'm going to use my little notepad here, and I'm going to write a lot of stuff. So the thing with symmetric encryption is, if you remember, symmetric encryption is where one key does the encryption and the decryption. So let's say you're sending data. Let's say it's Andy, that's me, and then there's Mary. So Andy has data that he wants to send to Mary. And if Andy has data that he wants to send to Mary, he has to encrypt this data. So Andy would generate a symmetric key, encrypt this data, sends it to Mary as ciphertext, we'll call it CT, ciphertext. Mary would then use the same symmetric key. So the symmetric key, let's say symmetric key 1, this is symmetric key 1. The key that's using to encrypt is the same key using to decrypt. So then she would have to have the key somehow. She would then use this key to decrypt this data, and then she would decrypt the ciphertext to get the data. So in this situation, I take the data, I encrypt it with a key. I give Mary the ciphertext. Mary then utilizes that same symmetric key to decrypt the data, and now she has the data, and I have that I sent her. Now, in this system, it's fine, right? It's great because the encryption process is very fast, and that's one of the greatest things. Famous algorithms like AES, the Advanced Encryption Standard, is what we pretty much use to encrypt all data today. You have all the ones like popular like DES or data encryption or triple DES, tree DES or triple DES are also popular algorithms, not anymore because they were cracked, shouldn't use DES. So things like AES, very popular algorithm, is what you see here. Now, this is important to know because there is a major problem with symmetric encryption. The problem with symmetric encryption was, maybe you saw it here, was how the hell do I get this key, this symmetric key, to Mary? That's the question. How do we take this symmetric key and give it to Mary? If this medium, let's say this space between Mary and Andy, a hacker is listening. So let's say you got a bad guy called hacker, and he's monitoring the communication link between Mary and Andy. Well, this is not good. If you're monitoring communication between Andy and Mary, and you're sniffing all the data, that means that when I encrypted the data and I sent it to Mary, how the hell was Mary supposed to get the key, right? Because she would have gotten the ciphertext, but how would I give her the key? That's the problem with symmetric encryption. How do you get the key from the sender of the data to the receiver of the information? The key would have to go through another medium. It would have to go through, maybe don't go through this medium that I'm using here. If this is an internet cable, don't send it through the internet, right? Call her over the phone, give her the key, text it to her. These are called out-of-band methods, or methods that are not through the same path that the data took. So the data would take one path, the key would take another path. It's not effective, and we don't do that. The way to do this would be to utilize another encryption system to pass the symmetric key. And with that in mind, I'm going to give you a brand new encryption system. We're going to come back to this. There is a problem, and I want to show you, clear it up in the night. The next encryption system we're going to be talking about is something called asymmetric. Asymmetric encryption. So symmetric is one key. Symmetric means one, right? The same. Asymmetric, think of it as two, or different. Asymmetric uses two keys. In an asymmetric realm, everybody has a public and a private key. So I have public-private, Mary has public-private, Bob has public-private, Tom has public-private. Everybody in the asymmetric realm has two keys, public-private, public-private, public-private. And when they want to transfer data, they're going to utilize these two keys. Now, I'm going to explain it to you in simple terms. I'm going to show it to you in a simple term. And then I'm going to show you, as I'm going through this, I'm going to show you a way that it's used. Then I'm going to tell you that's not the way it's actually used. I know. You got to watch me finish the whole thing and it'll all make sense. But I want to show it to you. What I'm about to show you is going to be wrong. I know that. You'll see what I mean. Just you got to stick with me on this. So in the world of asymmetric encryption, there's two keys. Once again, public-private. Everybody has a public-private. I have a public-private. She has a public-private. She has a public-private. Your public key is given to anyone in the world. Your private key is only kept to yourself. So let's say this phone represents your public key. Okay, and your wallet represents your private key. All right, so public key, private key. So what do? Well, anybody that wants my public key, I give it to them. It's public. Anyone can get it. My wallet, I'm not giving this to anyone. This stays in my pocket. All right, and if you ever want it, I'm going to fight you. I'm going to protect it. Keyword, protect your private key. So your public key, you give to anyone that needs it. The way the encryption works is like this. I want to show it to you quickly. So the way the encryption works is like this. So you're going to have Andy and you're going to have Mary. Andy has a public and a private key. Mary has a public and a private key. Mary gives her public key to everyone. Andy gives his public key to anyone. Andy's private key, obviously, he keeps private. Same thing with Mary. Now, if I want to send data to Mary, here's how this key system works. I generate data. Let's call it D1 data set. Maybe I want to give her the answers to a test or something. So I generate my data. I say, hey, Mary, I want to send you some data. Can you give me your public key? So Mary sends me her public key. I take it and I encrypt the data. Notice her public key, not her private key. I send this back to her as ciphertext. She then utilizes her private key to decrypt this ciphertext that she got. And now she has the data set 1. So if data is encrypted with your public key, only your private key can decrypt it. All right, so one more time. If your public encrypts, only your private can decrypt. These two keys are mathematically linked to each other. When a public encrypts, only the correspondent private can decrypt. When a private encrypts, only the correspondent public key can decrypt it. The two keys are going to work together to encrypt and decrypt, but none of the key can encrypt and decrypt at the same time, the same data set. So for example, if you have data, you can't use your public to encrypt and decrypt it. No. You can use your public to encrypt and your private to decrypt, or vice versa. But one key can't do both operations. That's something you have to know about this type of system. Now, the two keys are mathematically linked. And when you give out your public key, one question that people ask me is, Andrew, can someone, because I give out my public key, can someone actually because you have my public key, get the private key out of it? The answer is beyond the scope of a CISSP class. That's you getting the private key from the public key. The keys are mathematically linked. I will not get into the math in this course. I know it's a common question people ask. Just for now, just say no. Say no, you can. You can't. If I give you my public key, just say no, you cannot get my private key out of it. The math is complex. How does the math work? Beyond the scope of this class. And you know, sometimes when I'm teaching a live class, I'll go into how the creation of RSA keys and prime numbers are done, but you don't need to know that for your tests, all right? Not for any exam, you really don't need to know that. Security plus CISSP doesn't matter. Okay, so understand how the key systems work. That's important. One key encrypt, one key decrypts. Now, this kind of encryption has a lot of benefits. Okay, tons and tons and tons of benefits. And I want to show you what those benefits are. So you notice that if there was a hacker, put a hacker over here monitoring the lines, what does the hacker see? Well, the hacker see the transfer, the first one, let's say transfer 1, is the public key. That's not a secret because anybody can get Mary's public key. He sees the transfer, let's say transfer 2 is the ciphertext going back. You know what? No big deal. It's encrypted data. Encrypted data flows around the internet all day. Anytime you go on the internet, and log in somewhere. Anything with a TLS connection is encrypted data. So this is good in the sense that you don't have this problem as you do. This is symmetric. But in this one, you have asymmetric. In this one, you don't have that problem of passing the key. Asymmetric encryption has quite another good benefit. And this one, you got to hear me out. All right. So listen to this. Remember the rule. If your public key encrypts, your private key will decrypt. Now, listen to this carefully, if I encrypt data with my private key, now who has my private key? Only me, right? Think of my wallet again. If I encrypt something with my wallet, right, with my private key, then who can decrypt it? Think about that for a second. If I encrypt data with my private key, who can decrypt this data? The answer is, did you get it? The answer is everyone. Wait a minute, really? Yes, everyone, because the public key is given to the public. It's not a secret thing. The public key is given to everyone, and if I encrypt with my private key, then they can easily obtain the public key and decrypt it. The question is, why the hell would you do that? People say, Andrew, why would you want to encrypt something where the world can decrypt this thing? You know, that doesn't make sense. Or does it? The answer is it makes a lot of sense if you're trying to provide authentication and non-repudiation. You see, authentication, right, is proven an entity's identity. If you took my public key and you decrypted a document that was supposed to be encrypted by me, if you're able to decrypt it and read the document, then you know it came from me because I am the only one that had my public key. I'm sorry, my private key. That's why this is one of the reasons why we use asymmetric encryption. Because with asymmetric encryption, you're going to be able to provide authentication. Servers can authenticate themselves to others. It's going to be used in the grand scheme of algorithms, such as when we use digital signatures, which I don't want to cover tonight. But because of the way the private key system, the ability for the private key to encrypt and the public key to decrypt it, we're going to be able to provide non-repudiation and authentication through these systems. So that's one of its main benefits. Now, I do have a slide here I want to go over with you guys quickly of some of the main things that this symmetric system does. And let me just pull this over here. So let's open this up. So here's what it does. So we said already, decryption keys cannot be derived from the encryption key. So you can't take, I said if you get the public key, you can't get the private key out of it. Used for transmitted encryption key. I'm going to come to that. Key distribution, we said it's simple. It's not a complex process as you would have an asymmetric. Now, we know that it provides I just mentioned it provides authentication, non-repudiation, and it could do integrity also. It does have a good set of benefits. So the addition of new users requires a generation of only one public-private key pair. Now, I did mention this when I did the video. When I did the video in symmetric encryption, I told you guys that when you are using a symmetric system, if you have, let's make a new one. So if you have Andy, Mary, and Bob in a symmetric key system, if you want an encryption between Andy and Mary, you need one key. Between Andy and Bob, a second key. Between Bob and Mary, a third key. If you had Peter, now you need to have, Peter would need a key with Andy, with Mary, and with Bob. There's a formula in this, right? If you remember this. Now you have 4, 5, 6 keys in total. There's a formula for this, keep in mind in the last video. So every time you add somebody in a symmetric key system, you got to generate a new key between those two people and everybody else in your network. The thing with utilizing something like an asymmetric system is you just need to give everybody public-private key. Public-private key. Public-private key for Mary. Public-private key. That's it. Everybody gets public-private key and you're done. So if somebody quits, let's say Bob quits and Christine joins, just give her a new public-private key. If it was asymmetric and somebody quit, you're in trouble because then you got to delete all the key pair that this person have with everyone. When a new person joins, we make a whole new key pair. So managing the users is, where's that slide? Users can be added easily. Yes, very easy, because you only have to generate one public-private key pair. Another good thing is key generation is only required when a user's private key is compromised. If somebody gets their computer hacked, they get a virus on the web server was compromised using some form of ransomware or something, you have to regenerate a brand new public-private key, and that's the only time you do it. Other than that, you can let them keep using the same keys, especially internal, for like 5 years. It's fine. So you don't need to keep regenerating keys often. So management of the system is easy. Key distribution is easy. Addition of users is easy. You only need to generate the key if something gets seriously compromised. You get authentication, you get non-repudiation, you can get integrity. All right, another benefit, no pre-existing communication link is even needed in this type of system. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, hey, Andrew, this system is amazing. This thing has a lot of benefits, right? It looks like it has more benefit than symmetric system. So why the hell would we want to use symmetric encryption? Why not just use asymmetric for everything? And there is a reason, all right? There's something with this type of encryption that makes it unusable for many purposes, especially encryption of data. Asymmetric encryption doesn't actually encrypt data. Let me show you something. Why? Because it is considered very slow. In fact, as Wikipedia puts it, it's too slow for many purposes. So if you look at Wikipedia under asymmetric encryption or public key encryption, it's too slow. The encryption process to encrypt data, especially large data sets, the algorithm, the key sizes are very big. And because the key sizes are incredibly large, like an RSA key is 2048-bit, which is a very, very large key, the encryption process is very slow. So you can't encrypt a lot of data with it. Now, in fact, if you go back in history, in the 1970s, one of the first asymmetric algorithm that came out was called Diffie-Hellman. This was created by two guys named Diffie and another one named Hellman. Their last names. One of them became like the CEO or CFO or CIO or something like that of Sun Microsystem. They created, or have to create one of the first asymmetric system. The Diffie-Hellman algorithm, RSA, another popular one, ECC, another popular one. These types of algorithms are not meant to actually encrypt data. These types of systems are meant to encrypt symmetric keys. So I'm going to show you guys how this works. All right, but I want to show you guys some of the algorithms in a minute. But right now, so the famous algorithms that you guys should be familiar with for your exam is RSA. RSA is one of the most famous asymmetric algorithms. You're going to find this almost on all your certificates. When you get a certificate from a web server, if you're doing like a TLS connection. Another famous one is ECC. The elliptic curve crypto system it's getting more and more popular. A lot of certificates and TLS connection utilizes this. The benefit of an ECC over RSA is that RSA requires a large key size. ECC allows for a smaller key size. In fact, an RSA key of like 1024 is only like 160-bit ECC. The reason why this is good is because technically speaking, if the keys are smaller, you can then utilize it to do data encryption. Effectively, you may not need symmetric, but we still have symmetric around. ECC is getting more popular. Maybe one day it'll even replace RSA as the almost or de facto standards of asymmetric algorithms. Diffie-Hellman is very popular also. And it's also, asymmetric is also utilized in the DSA, or the digital signature algorithm. I'm not going to get into this. This is a topic by itself. Maybe one night, if you guys want me to cover, or maybe one night I'll just do a video on, what exactly is a digital signature. So that's where this is used. Yeah, I said that wrong. This is where, these are the algorithms where they're used. Now, I want to cover with you guys one more topic here on asymmetric. And that is the topic of hybrid encryption. Now, what is hybrid encryption? Hybrid encryption, we have good things with symmetric. Symmetric is very fast. Okay, very, very fast, very strong. So it's fast and it's strong. But key distribution sucks. Doesn't do authentication, doesn't do non-repudiation, it just does encryption, confidentiality. Asymmetric does authentication, does non-repudiation, doesn't do confidentiality, it doesn't encrypt data. So how about if we take these two systems, symmetric and asymmetric, and combine them to form the perfect crypto system? This is called hybrid crypto, or hybrid encryption, or hybrid crypto system, however you want to call that. Most of the articles you read or books you read, you're going to call this hybrid crypto systems, and it's just a combination of both. And I'm going to show you guys how this works. It's really simple once you understand the reason for it. So let's take a look. So there is Andy, and there is Mary. In this setup, I want to send data set 1, to Mary. Mary has a public and a private key. I'm going to utilize, basically what it comes down to is this. I'm going to utilize asymmetric to do the data, symmetric to do the data encryption. And I'm going to utilize asymmetric keys to pass the symmetric key. Once again, you use symmetric key to encrypt data, and you use asymmetric key to pass the symmetric key. That way you get the benefits of both systems. Why? Because symmetric keys are quick to encrypt the data, so you want to use that to encrypt the data. And asymmetric keys are great at passing small things around, like keys are very small, without having to have any kind of pre-existing link needed. That's what it's good at. So let's see how it works. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to generate on my computer a symmetric key. So we'll call this SY. SY1, symmetric. Yeah, we don't need a 1 in there. Let's call it SY. Now, sometimes you read certain books, right? And they call them a session key. It's the same thing. So I'm going to generate a symmetric key on my machine. I'm going to tell Mary to send me, hey, Mary, can you send me a public key? Mary sends me over the public key. So now I have the public key. So I have the public key on my machine. I have the symmetric key on my machine. Can you imagine what I'm going to do here? I just told you. I'm going to use the symmetric key to encrypt the data. So I have ciphertext. I'm going to then utilize her public key to encrypt the symmetric key. Notice the public key is not encrypting the data. It's encrypting the symmetric key. And now I end up with, let's call this ciphertext PU, so we know. It's not going to say PU on the machine at all, on the data. It's all going to look like jumbled up data. I'm going to send this over to Mary as ciphertext, and ciphertext, that's one of them being the public key. Mary then utilizes her private key to decrypt the symmetric key. All right. Decrypt the symmetric key. She then uses this symmetric key to decrypt the ciphertext, and now she has the data. So, quick recap. I take the symmetric, I make a symmetric key. I encrypt it with her public key to get this ciphertext here. I just call it ciphertext public key because we know that public key is what encrypted that symmetric key. I send this to her. She receives the ciphertext of the data, the ciphertext of the symmetric key that was encrypted with her public key. She decrypts it with her private key. She then uses the symmetric key to decrypt that ciphertext data. Now she has the data. That's basically what this is. So, in a nutshell, here's how it works again. Mary's over there, I'm here. I say, hey Mary, can you send me your public key? I want to transfer you some data. So I take my data, I create a symmetric key, I encrypt it with the symmetric key. I then take her public key and I encrypt the data, the symmetric key. I use the symmetric key to encrypt the data. Right? So data is being encrypted with symmetric key. Symmetric key is being encrypted with Mary's public key. Send it to Mary. Mary decrypts. The first thing she has to decrypt with her private key is that symmetric key. She then takes symmetrically encrypted data. Now, if you're wondering, do we use this? Do we use hybrid encryption? You're using it right now. You see, hybrid encryption, I wanted to show you guys this. Hybrid encryption, hybrid crypto system. You can look this up on Wikipedia. You're probably saying, do we use hybrid encryption system? The process I just explained is here in the Wikipedia article. Between Bob and Alice, the first thing Bob does is obtain Alex's public key, so that's what I did for Mary. He generates a new symmetric key. He encrypts the message with that symmetric key. He then encrypts that symmetric key with Alice's public key and then sends everything to Alice. Alice then decrypts the symmetric key with her private key and they use symmetric key to decrypt the message. Now this is what I went over with you guys. Now you're probably saying, do we use this? Where do we use this? Have I ever used it? Yeah, use it all the time. You know why? Because this is the basis of a famous algorithm that you guys know as TLS. All practical implementations of public key cryptography today employs the use of a hybrid system, including TLS. What I'm explaining to you guys here tonight is the basis of SSL/TLS. All right, this forms the basis of the SSL handshake. At a high level, this is basically what it is. I would utilize it all the time. I'll give you guys a little bit of a real world practical view of it. So in an example like this, all right, where it is Andy and Mary, it wouldn't be Andy and Mary. Okay, it would be, this one erase here for me. It would be Andy and Amazon. And I would acquire, to start the process, I would acquire Amazon's public key. I'm not going to get into this in this video because it gets into a long topic. But if you want to see the practical implementation, just go to Amazon.com. And TLS is here, right? We know we have a little lock on our browser here. We know the connection is secure, HTTPS. So for this to work, I would have to acquire Amazon's public key. That's what certificates are for. Certificates validates this. See the certificate? And here is Amazon's public key. They use an RSA key. Remember I told you guys RSA is a famous algorithm. Certificates are ways to pass the public key around in a crypto system. The other one I told you guys about was this ECC. So look at that. I Googled Google. Google. If I go in here, I'll notice that they use an ECC public key. Notice 256-bit public key of an ECC key versus Amazon's giant RSA key. If I go to certificates, you'll see that, hey, this one here is 2048 bits. A very large, because it's giant key difference. 256 versus 2048 bit, and the ECC provides the same level of security as the RSA 2048 bit. I'm not going to get into that. Into why the math. It comes down to the complexity of the math, and RSA is a very complex. RSA requires bigger keys to provide the same level of security as ECC, which with a smaller key size. So this is where we utilize. It's hybrid encryption. It's where we are going to utilize things like SSL or TLS. It's where we use it all the time. So hybrid encryption is, you see, one thing I want to point out is with asymmetric encryption, there is really no practical implementation of straightforward asymmetric. Asymmetric encryption is generally combined with other forms of encryption, such as hashing to create digital signatures, or symmetric to create things like TLS. So, or hybrid cryptography. So asymmetric in its standalone is not something that you're going to utilize by itself. So a lot of people a lot of people study these things and don't see the problems, and sometimes the book just fails to mention that. But if you do some research, you go through this, you learn, like it says, all practical implementation of public key has to use some kind of hybrid system, whether we're combining that with hash or combining it with symmetric or combining it with all. Okay, guys, that is the presentation there on asymmetric encryption. I would love to cover hashing, PKI, or public key infrastructure, where we're going to talk about things like certificates and how that works. But when it comes to this is more than enough for your exam. I'm going to do 5 practice questions with you guys. I did not get a chance to see if you guys had asked me any questions. Okay, so let me take a look at some practice questions. You guys asked me. Okay, you answered the question. It's resource heavy, yes. Box Knight 7 says it's resource heavy. Yes, it is incredibly resource heavy. Okay, did you guys learn something tonight, guys? Was tonight a fun time? Did you guys enjoy that stuff? Put something in the box. Let me know what you guys think. You guys are not participating too well tonight. If not, I'm going to put some practice questions here for you guys. See how well you guys understood the topics themselves. All right, so let me pull up these practice questions here, make sure they're all looking good. I got 5 practice questions for you guys. Pull this over here. Now, these practice questions are going to be pretty easy. Why? Because you just learned asymmetric encryption. So, they should be pretty easy. I didn't think you should get any of them wrong. I thought they were pretty easy as I was making them, because I was like, these guys should get this one, because it is pretty, if they just learn asymmetric, they should know the answer to this. But I wanted to show you guys what type of questions they may ask you on the test. So let's go take a look. Let's read it. Let's come up with the answer. Give you guys a couple minutes to think about the answer. All right, so let's take a look here. So practice question number 1. A security manager needs to implement a new encryption system to keep to, I typed this right before this thing came out. Let's keep it to ensure servers are authenticating to users. What is the best encryption system for this? So we need an encryption system to do authentication with. Are we going to be using symmetric encryption, asymmetric, hashing, or smart cards? So we need an encryption system for them to authenticate with. The best answer, Box Knight says you're doing your Security Plus. Yes, this is covered in Security Plus pretty much in the same damn way. So pause the video, see what the answer is, come up. Obviously the answer is going to be encryption. Asymmetric does support authentication. We know that asymmetric does not do authentication. Now, some people are going to say, hey, Andrew, hashings are used in passwords. Hashing is part of authentication, but it's not a full system for it. You hash passwords. The best answer here was asymmetric. Now, when you take the exam, be prepared for when you get these somewhat good answer. Smart cards, it's not a type of an encryption system. It's more of a hardware-based system. Asymmetric is an encryption system that we can use to do authentication with. Practice question number 2. An organization is using hybrid encryption. We just covered this. What encryption key would be best used to pass the symmetric key? Asymmetric public, asymmetric private, symmetric key, or hash. So think about the answer here for a second. You're doing a hybrid encryption system. All right? You have to pass that symmetric key. To pass the symmetric key, what key is going to be used to encrypt that symmetric key? Well, the answer here is going to be the asymmetric public key. And to make this even harder, it's actually the symmetric keys are encrypted by the guy receiving the data as public key. It's not a private key because you never give that away. The symmetric key is the symmetric key, so no, it's not a hash. Okay, practice question number 3. An organization is thinking of implementing a new public key cryptography system. What would be one of the main reasons to not implement this system alone? It allows for authentication. It allows for fast data encryption. It's using digital signatures. It's using TLS. All right, basically, what would be not a good reason to implement public key? Now, keep in mind, public key encryption is the same thing as asymmetric. Anytime they say private key, anytime you hear the word private key encryption, they talk symmetric. Every time you hear the word public key, they're talking asymmetric. So private key symmetric, public key asymmetric. The answer here is going to be, keep the word not. What's not good about public key systems? It is considered very slow. So never implemented for fast encryption. It does support authentication. It does support digital signatures, and it is used in TLS. Okay, very good. An organization needs to implement, number 4, a new web server with TLS. Which of the following algorithm would best be used if they want a public key system with a smaller key? RSA, AES, ECC, and DES. Now, we covered this literally a few minutes ago, so that's why you guys should get this one correct. The answer here is going to be ECC. Now, AES and DES should be eliminated because the question does specify they need a public key system. AES and DES are private key systems or symmetric systems. Which one has a smaller key? Well, I just showed you that certificate. You had RSA 2048-bit giant size key, and the ECC had a smaller key of 256. Again, ECC could provide the benefits of RSA with a smaller key size. And you probably want, well, what's the big deal if it's a smaller key size? Because it does encryption faster. In a hybrid encryption system, what key would be used by the receiver to decrypt the data? What key would be used by the receiver to decrypt the data? The sender's public, sender's private, symmetric key, or receiver's private key. All right, put the answer. Put the answer there. Think about the answer here for a second. What answer would you get? Okay, pause the video if you could. If not, then the answer here is going to be, so you got a hybrid system and the receiver gets the data. What are you going to use to decrypt the data? The symmetric key. The sender only generates the private key. The sender never utilizes the keys. They never utilize public. They don't have public private key. Like when I go to Amazon, I don't have public private key. So they utilize the symmetric key because remember, the symmetric key was encrypted with the receiver's public key. So when he receives it, he decrypts it with his private key and then uses that symmetric key to decrypt the data. Remember, in a hybrid system, the data is encrypted with a symmetric key. They use an asymmetric key to pass the symmetric key. Okay, guys, I only had 5 questions here on this topic. This topic, when it comes to your exam, especially like a CISSP exam, you're probably not going to get a ton of questions on your exam about it. But you're probably going to get 1 or 2 questions on it. But you are going to be expected to understand the process. I don't think you're going to get questions like you have to know this algorithm with this bit size. I know you read some of the study guides, they really go into that. They really cover this algorithm with this bit size, that type of stuff. I don't think you need to know that for your exam, especially at CISSP. And if you're doing like a Security Plus exam, you probably need to know algorithms. You should know a list of these algorithms. These are probably key sizes you would need for a Security Plus. But CISSP, understand the main process of itself. CISSP is going to give you that higher level question versus that really specific question in there. Okay, guys, very good. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this session. Maybe in the next session, I'll try to get it done next week. We can do some hashing. If you guys have any topics you guys would like for me to cover or anything you guys would like for me to do, leave the comments below. I'll make sure I read them and maybe we'll cover them in a future session. Okay, so last night, I know you'd asked me a question. I wanted to answer it earlier. It says, I have a question. I'm going through Security Plus right now. Would that be enough for 1 year experience? Yes. To get CISSP, you need 5 years experience. You could substitute 1 year with a Security Plus. So that is correct. So if you have the other 4 years, you could go ahead and do if you have the other 4 years, you could go ahead and do your CISSP. Now, if you want to do your CISSP, listen, You don't need a ton of experience and real life experience to do a CISSP. I've been teaching CISSP a long time, 17 years or something like that. And I've had people that had really no tech background because they were just security managers and they passed this exam. If you got the downtime and you got the time to study, or you're not knowing what certifications to study for, and you want to study for your CISSP, and even if you don't have the experience, you could still take the test. ISC Square allows you to take your CISSP even if you have no experience, and you're going to get what's called the associate of the CISSP. And then you can take, when you get your 5 years experience, then you can take the actual, then you get the actual certification. You have to take the test again. From my experience, the CISSP has only gotten harder over the years. I've never seen the CISSP got easier. Every time the exam comes around and you want to add more topics to it, they make it more ambiguous. You know, when I took CISSP 17 years ago, it was very straightforward, not so ambiguous, choose the best answer exam. Now it's very ambiguous, choose the best answer. So you could take the CISSP if you have no experience. You would get the quote unquote the associate of the exam, and then whenever you get your 5 years experience, you can then apply and get the full certification without taking the test again. So that's something to think about. But Security Plus, listen, if you're studying for Security Plus, it's a great certification. I would not stop studying. I think Security Plus is an amazing certification that you should get. All people studying for CISSP should get a Security Plus. It is a great certification to get. Finish that, and then you can think about that. All right, if anybody else have any questions that I can get answered for them. All right, very good. Okay, guys, very good. If you guys want, once again, if you guys want me to cover any new topics or anything like that, you guys can always add it in the chat box or in the comments below. I'll try to make sure I get them answered. And with that in mind, guys, thank you guys for coming out tonight. Don't forget to did you guys click on the like button? Did you guys do that? I forgot to ask that. If you enjoyed my presentation today, click on the like button, would be amazing. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not done that. We will do more videos for it. Box Knight says, is there an expiration for the associate? You know, I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. It might be. I don't think you can keep it forever. As an associate, maybe it's valid for 5 years. I don't know. I don't know if I really can't give you an answer. I don't want to say yes or no to that, not knowing that answer correct. Okay, guys, you guys have a great night, great week, evening. Hopefully I can see you guys back again next week. If you guys know anybody studying for the CISSP, turn up to join the channel, subscribe to the channel, or attempt to watch this session, hopefully to get some value out of it. And hopefully we can have more of you guys attend it and help more people pass their exam. I will see you guys soon, hopefully next week. Okay, guys, have a great night, evening, weekend, weekday, whatever it is.